old men, but I think one of the traps we fall into, and I mentioned it to when a good friend Roger Hall, yeah, I just been reading the book on Harley Hall. But anyway, Roger Hall, and I mentioned it to him and his counsel. He said that, you know, we make a mistake when we tell DIA or whoever it is at the top now that we want this information. And I just saw the other day where someone from the Washington Times had written an article, and it was about Tom Fenton, I think, and Fenton is a big investigator, and he's asking for information. And somebody got to him and said that, you know, this is a topic you might be interested in. I guess, I'm not sure. So anyway, and I'll tell him that too if I can get to him, is that don't ask for all the information. What you just finished your talk with is what we should be asking for. Last known alive. We're only interested, I speak for myself, I'm only interested in the live guys. I'm sorry, if you're dead, you're dead. You can't, you can't really help us unless you send us some prayers. But, so keep that in mind when you're asking for things and you have a willing ear that listening. We don't want all of the information because what they do, they start with those that they know are not alive. And they send you all that crap. Excuse me, guys. But they send us all that stuff and they hold back what we really want to know, which is about the live guys. And so that's what we should, anybody that's involved in that should be asking. We want the information on live guys. Then we can go and get the information on the dead guys.
Last known alive guys.
In 1987, General Vesey was sent to Vietnam with 90 live sighting reports, confirmed live sighting reports of Americans held prisoner in Vietnam. Why would our government send live sighting reports to a government which was still hostile to us? As a result, the Vietnamese would know the source of those live sighting reports and eliminate them, as well as not confirming any information on prisoners. So obviously, we did not want our prisoners back because it would have destroyed the legacy of Nixon and Carter and Kissinger.
Well, thankfully, there's other questions, so let's just go up here, sorry. No, thank you. You're welcome. So just so that everybody kind of has a bit of an update, the Alliance has been working behind the scenes with a couple of people so that some elected officials can be briefed on the last known alive issue because they weren't really aware that it was a problem and, you know, all the same things that they say. But there are some people who have direct connection with their representatives and already have a time set up in the future to do this briefing. And so if anybody who is a family member is willing to give their permission to use their case as essentially, you know, this is, instead of us just talking about it, here are the names, here are the people, this is what their case looks like. We already have a few people from across the Korean Wars and Vietnam Wars. But if you're interested as putting one of the cases forward that they can review or they know a name of, we're welcome to add that in. And one of the things that has been, I guess, annoying, is a nice way to put it, is just the sheer, like the responses when you talk about the problem with last known alive, on the military side of the house and DPAA, you will hear them say, well, that's not what we're in charge of, which is sort of true and sort of not true. But if when you're talking about current active wars, who are the people who are supposed to be returning people? If I was to go missing when I was in Iraq or Afghanistan, who was in charge of getting me home if I was taken? Well, I can tell you it wasn't DPA at all. So DPA also will fall back on that and say, well, that's not our job. Our job no longer is to really give you answers about and find information about people who are still alive in captivity. That's not our job. That's the Department of Defense's job, DIA's job. That's the Personnel Recovery Unit's job over at blah, blah, blah. That's what they've been kind of discussing over the last couple of years. And I only know that because when I was living in DC, I was asked a couple of times to represent the Alliance at the unclassified briefings that happened over at DPAA's building. And Artie Muller had put somebody to task about the last known alive issue, and the answer was, well, that's not our job, that's not what we do. And he was like, no, but it's in your title. And like, no, if they're still alive, that's the military's job, that's somebody else's job to handle that. So they're falling back on that even when we're talking about people going all the way back to the Vietnam War. So it might be interesting to add a couple of the other agencies' names into requests, see what happens. Since DPA says that it's supposed to be handled by somebody else, you could add those other agencies in and see what happens. It'd be fun to see what they have to say about it.
So the Moore family, Bob Moore, whose brother Harry Moore, they learned 40 years after the war, had likely been captured in Korea and actually sent to the Soviet Union. He's suing the government agencies, and one thing the government is doing is playing rope-a-dope, saying DIA doesn't have any documents on this anymore. DPAA does, including, and we know of course that there were Americans alive by name, kept by the communists. So I've gotten involved in that because DIA has refused to provide me on the grounds of classification about living POWs in North Korea. So they're now playing the game.
Yep. And I mean, that's something that when I was preparing to go to Iraq in 2009, in 2008, I volunteered to go to SEER because as the family member of somebody who has not been returned, not the most trusting that the government's going to do their job to get me home. And so I made a promise to my parents and to my family that I would get as much training as I could so I could try and get myself home. And one of the things, like the tenets that you get taught are trust in your God, number one. Number two is trust in your government. And I wore Junior's bracelet at SEER. And they were well aware of the fact that they had a family member of a POW in SEER. But the first thing that they asked was, and this is because I'm a government civilian, I wasn't in the military at the time, and so they asked those of us who were going through as civilians, like, why, because we all essentially volunteered, like, why are you here? Well, my partner was sitting next to me and he was like, well, because I'm on an evidence recovery team and sometimes we go overseas to bad areas and I think that this would be helpful. Pass off to Nicolette Rose, number two. I say, well, that's my partner, I'm on the same team as him and I'm also getting prepared to go to Iraq. And I'm the niece of a POW who you guys haven't figured out how to bring home since 1967. And they were like, oh Lord. And the study material that they had for us in the back library were things that I have. I have copies of them because Mom and Dolores and Eleanor all gave me copies, and my copies are signed copies. And they say things like, Nicolette, I hope you don't have to continue to deal with this into your adulthood, because I was like 6 when they were written. And they're back there, in my SEER school. And I got pulled aside at one point by one of those psychologists, and they asked, are you serious that you really don't believe that we're going to come and get you? And I was like, no offense, you haven't proven anything in my lifetime that I should trust you. Yes, I work for the US government, but I'm here to learn a skill set so that I'm comfortable when I go overseas if something happens to me. And not for nothing, I'm a female going over to the Middle East. This is probably not like a good happy time for me to get caught or for me to get kidnapped. And the conversation that I'm having with my family afterwards is, here are my trusted people in the agency that I work for, who if shit goes sideways are going to be informed because they're who I officially put down, who are going to have a conversation with you so you guys know what's going on, that they're allowed to tell you. But the people in my office who I had those conversations with, I had to then give them a brief about what my family looks like. Like, hey, not for nothing, but in '92, my mom got told by the President of the United States to sit down and shut up because of POWMIA issues. My aunt is the national chairperson. Like, my family has been in front of Senate and Congress and been like, hey, quit lying, you assholes. More polite than that, but like, this is the family that if something happens to me that you're going to have to go, play the go-between, because I don't trust the situation. I trust you to honestly have a conversation with them, and I'm giving them the guarantee that you're going to be honest with them because I know you're a good person, and I know that's what you're going to do. But in Sear, I was like, dude, I'm out there by myself. No offense. Like, I recognize that I have a band of brothers who might do what they need to do to come and get me, but I had the conversation of, if you don't hear from me, if intel is down, you got nothing for a couple of weeks, you can pretty much guarantee that Nicolette's gonna try and probably either make it out by herself, or she's, like, I'm not gonna be alive for 50 years. My family's not gonna go through that. And I briefed my parents, I'm an only child, briefed my parents, just so you know, this is the plan, because I'm not gonna make you go through what you had to do waiting for your family. And I still work for the government, and they know that's just how it is, because until somebody comes back with a better answer about my family, you know what? It's just kind of a one-on-one game. And then I'm going to hand it back over to my mom to introduce.